Today's Toy Spot, we are having a look at the Neca Robocop ED-209, the future of law enforcement.
Shop for collector figures, statues, prop replicas, and more at Alter Ego Comics and earn rewards points that can be redeemed on any items. No exclusions.
Coming to us in this substantially large box, the moment I found out that Neca was going to be producing an ED-209, I really wanted to get my hands on this. Now, it has arrived, and Spot actually ended up ordering this from the folks over at Alter Ego Comics, because unfortunately, as it normally tends to be, Spot was unable to get this locally. But I ordered it from Alter Ego Comics. It arrived in record time, and I certainly can't wait to get this opened up. It is recommended for ages 17 and up. This, of course, comes to us from NECA and Real Toys. On the front of the box here, some really nice artwork on ED-209. I don't know, I would say necessarily it's scene-specific. You could say it's really from the end of the movie where Robocop goes to confront Dick Jones, and the ED-209 is out the front. Who's to say? But some really nice artwork on the front here. ED-209 has superior firepower and the reflexes to use it, developed by Omni Consumer Products. As far as I know as well, this is one of the few instances where you get a NECA toy in a box. Normally they're in a card or like a blister pack. Blister card, but this we actually have a box. Some really nice artwork on the side there of ED-209, and we just spin around the box again. On the back, I love this artwork. Features, I guess, push button activates authentic sound effects and dialogue, extending legs, and fully articulated. Warning though, well, not so much a warning, but Robocop figure is sold separately. So what I'm going to do is take a break. I know you guys have been looking forward to seeing this review, so I'm going to take myself a break, going to get this opened up, get ED-209 all together, and when we come back, we're going to get a better look at ED-209. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. So having a look at the ED-209, I gotta say NECA did a fantastic job on this piece. Really, up to this point, the only ED-209 that we had was one that was released from Kenner. While the ED-209 wasn't bad, I mean, certainly it was completely out of scale with the Robocop figures that we got now. So, getting a Robocop and ED-209 properly scaled, we had to wait a few years for that to happen. But the end result is a gorgeous piece. Between the paint, just again, the overall size of it, ED-209 turned out really nice. Having a look at the piece itself, the majority of the figure, and I say figure, it's not really so much a figure. I mean, it does have the articulation and everything else to it, but the majority of this piece is an interesting blue. It's almost like a blue, I almost want to say like a blue pearl silver. It's an interesting color. I mean, certainly the color does match itself to that of the movie, but like all the levels of detailing in this piece is just mind-boggling. I mean, really, when you get down to like little elements of ED-209, there's aspects to it that every time you look at it, you're going to see a different section to him that you didn't see before. I mean, right down to like some of the detailings, like for example, a warning sign right down below there. And we got some nice detailing along the side of the leg here. Not to mention, really, that these little pockets of wiring. He's got some wiring around the toe area. He's got some wiring. Now, this wiring here is a sectional piece, like it's an actual piece of sculpted wire that they put in there as well. On the underside, you can see that there's just like little wires, little components underneath ED-209, especially even at the back. Some wired components. I mean, really, and all the wires are all individually painted. So, for example, you got the gold, you got some red in there, you got some silver. They've colored in the bolts or the screws that really would be keeping Ed-209 together if he was an actual, real robot. One thing that was interesting about Ed-209, for me, Spot's going to kind of go back in time for a second. For me, Ed-209 was one of the most memorable characters that I remember from my childhood. Robocop was, first of all, as soon as I saw the poster for Robocop in my video store, I didn't even know anything about the movie. And I can't remember, to be honest, what age I was at the time, but I really wanted to see the movie. My dad didn't think it was a good idea, so he ended up watching Robocop first, and then telling me whether it was something that I could get away with watching. Bless his heart, he did allow me to watch it, but really from the first moment, the first thing we get is Ed-209. I mean, of course, we get the boardroom scene and everything else, but that is the send-up to one of the most memorable 80s action movie openers I can think of, where you had this machine, this Ed-209, disarm, and I use the quotes, disarm, somebody, an assailant, so to speak, with a firearm. But I mean, the idea that they can incorporate a creature, a robot, but give it like the sounds of something that really made it a feral, terrifying monster. The growling, the grinding as it was moving, it was just a really, again, something that Spot, when he grows up, and certainly has as an adult now, I can go back and watch that scene. And every single time I watch that scene, the idea that this monster, this robot would be coming at me is a terrifying experience. But I think Ed-209 was definitely one of my most memorable characters from an 80s movie. I mean, certainly there's your Darth Vaders. There are, of course, your Gremlins. There's always so many characters from these movies, but Ed-209 still stands out to me as one of my most memorable characters in a movie. I don't know if that's sad. I don't know if that's really kind of ridiculous, but for me, like, that's a big chunk of my childhood, and probably why I love Robocop and Ed-209 as much as I do. That being said, again, the detailing on Ed-209 is really impressive. Like, all the components that you would see in the movie, and it makes me really want to go and watch the movie and kind of just slow down areas to see how much NECA was able to capture in this toy. And again, I don't really want to even say toy, because again, it's just a marvel of sculpting that they've done. And something certainly, having waited as long as we have to get Ed-209 to finally come out in a full, appropriate scale, for me is just, it's a dream come true. He does have articulation. He's not completely a staction piece. Now, if you were to say, look at this versus the Kenner piece, which unfortunately Spot does not have, the Kenner piece, as far as I know, just really had the swivel legs. I had it at one point when I was a kid, and I sold it. But I mean, Ed-209 really has a lot of articulation, considering that he is just a bi-walker, a two-leg walker with the cannon arms. He does have flaps, just on the flaps on the sides, that do allow the flaps do lift up, allowing for additional movement with the arms themselves. The arms, surprisingly, have a lot of flexibility to them. There is just a swing. There's a swing lever, a little swing peg, little swing section right here to Ed-209. So the arms do rotate up. Certainly from there, the arms do also hinge out via a hinge socket right in this area here. The main gun compartment can also rotate. And by even just having those two elements in articulation, you can get two different versions of Ed-209. You can get the more docile Ed-209 with the cannons down, like so, which we saw in the movie, or you can really have the arms by just extending these up, kind of just rotating them forward. You can have Ed-209 ready to just pummel the poor person that's aiming a gun at him. Certainly on the side, now this particular side is just the straight out machine gun, so it's not going to have any additional features, I would say, to it, but you spin this side around, and this arm, as it did in the movie, you can rotate, and he does house 3 firing missiles. Well, they're not firing on the toy, but 3 simulated firing missiles. And again, some really nice detailing on that side missile launcher section. Now this section does pop out. It does just hinge out like you see right here. And there is, let me just zoom in here, there is a track right here where this section can slide up against. And by doing that, you can raise those missiles up ready to be fired out. The coloring, though, again, Spot's probably going to sound like a broken record, but the coloring between just all the wires, the components, the bright red of the missiles, the little yellow on the side there as well, I mean, just really add to an overall aesthetic of ED-209. When we get to the lower section, I'll just lower these back down here. When you get to the lower section of ED-209, he is pretty much on par with what you would expect him to do. He does rotate left and right via the swivel right below, I guess to some extent, his neck. He does rotate left and right. And then when you get down to his legs, these of course swivel back and forth, showing you again the undersides of his feet. They swing back and forth. I don't know if this section will get progressively looser as these rotate back and forth. It would have made for a noisier toy, a noisier piece, but it's a shame that these weren't more ratcheted. Something that was catching these legs as they were rotating back and forth, so for fear that this will not get loose in time. Also, on top of that, he does have these, I don't know if you would call them pistons or extensions to his leg. You can take ED-209 and just pull, I don't want to use the word pull, but you have to pull this leg section out. Just kind of, initially when you first get it, it's extremely stiff. You kind of have to finagle it back and forth. You can also just push it from the top, and these also extend out. The only thing I'm worried about by bringing these out back and forth, these sections right here are attached to the bottom section of his legs. They're not to say that they're going to catch, because you can still see that there's a gap in between this section and the section here, but I'm still a little cautious pushing these up and down. One leg wasn't as hard as the other leg to extend out, but you can get something that looks like that. I probably would not display ED-209 with the extensions on the legs. In fact, I probably would more closely to the movie, and again, these are really, really stiff. I would probably bring these a little further down to probably about there. Of course, for your scale comparison, there is a very fitting battle-damaged Robocop, also produced by NECA Toys. And we're just going to put Robocop next to ED-209 so you can actually see how big he is versus Robocop. Now, those legs are, again, as Spot mentioned, about halfway retracted, which I think is probably a good size for the comparison between the two. I wouldn't have ED-209 any further up than that, but it's just a really nice dynamic having the two together. I mean, really, you could have, you know, depending on how you want your Robocop, you could kind of have him posed battling, of course, the mammoth ED-209. The only thing, and just moving Robocop out of the way, the only thing that unfortunately this ED-209 doesn't have in the way of articulation is articulated toes. It would have been kind of neat if you had it where you could extend the leg out and just kind of bend the toe as if he is feeling around for the stairwell that he is about to plummet down on. Now, obviously, with the wiring as it is, and for the fact that this could become a problem with the movement of the legs and getting him to stand properly, I could see why this section, this area of articulation would have been omitted. It still certainly doesn't take anything away from ED-209. He is just, again, a very, very impressive piece. He does also have sound effects. When you first get the toy out, he does have a little pull tab. You just pull that out. And there is a button right on the very side of ED-209. When you press it, he will rhyme through about several different phrases. Pressing the button once, just finding the button here. This would obviously be the director's cut of Robocop Soundbite. The very notorious scene, again, the opener with Dick Jones handing his poor co-worker the firearm and then pointing it at Ed-209. Now, in the original theatrical version, he got, the poor sucker got shot up probably about 5 seconds worth. The director's cut, of course, has it extended where, even thrown against the table, Ed-209 continues to pummel this poor man. Pressing the button, however, again, just pressing on the side. Hardest part is trying to line it. There we go. And that of course was the scene from the very end of the movie where Murphy as Robocop has gone back to confront Dick Jones. The Ed-209 is guarding the doorway entrance to OCP. Pressing the button again. You have just the walking sound effects for Ed-209. Pressing it again. And again, all of that was taken from the opener of Robocop. Overall, I'm just, again, extremely impressed with how Ed-209 turned out. I think my only critique of the piece is I do worry about the looseness of these legs, where in time, perhaps they may get loose, depending on how much movement you're going to be doing to the piece. There's not really a lot in the way of positioning that you could do with at least the lower legs because there is no articulation down below here. However, because you have some flexibility with the arms and of course the upper section of the robot, you can still get some really neat poses between the two. And by of course incorporating poor Robocop in the mix as well, you've got yourself a really nice diorama that you can have on display. Ed-209, I'm going to give him a 9.5. I really don't have anything too negative to say about it, again, just other than the longevity of these legs. I mean, I can already feel that they're slightly getting loose, but perhaps that could be something that could be remedied. Definitely, though, if you are a Robocop fan, you want to get your hands on Ed-209, I would say get your hands on Ed-209 because he is such an incredible piece. Also, if you have not had any chance like myself to find these locally, you might want to also head over to Alter Ego Comics. You can order this guy yourself. Today's Toy Spot, we're having a look at the NECA Toys Robocop Ed-209, the electronic sound effect and voice sounds Ed-209. A beautiful piece. Thanks for watching, guys. As you always do, certainly stay tuned. Spot's going to have more Toy Spots heading your way. I'll see you guys next time.